Greeting everyone. Hope all of you doing great today. So please could you confirm that you can hear my voice clear and loud? Perfect, perfect. So hope all of you doing great today. We have another episode from our live show, MITRE attack, and today we're going to cover reconnaissance phase. And reconnaissance, as you know, it's very important phase that the attacker always start with in order to gather information about target. Okay. So before we start, let me ask you a question here. So what do you know about reconnaissance and what phases or tools that you utilize in order to collect data about your target? Okay. So let me tell you why reconnaissance is very important step. But before starting with reconnaissance, I want to read this important disclaimer here. So, as you know, here we are at InfoSec 40C. We provide a cybersecurity training and consultation, and really, we're not promoting hacking or cracking or anything related to, software piracy and so on. And this demo here on YouTube, it's for informational and educational purposes only. So please, if you want to, use this information in ethics way, because as you know, if you're doing something bad here, you are going to violate law, and that's really bad. People can really capture you and send you to jail because you're already doing something illegal here. So please, as I mentioned, we focus on the ethical hacking part. So reconnaissance, as I mentioned, it's very important phase. If I'm telling you, hey, we're gonna attack today Tesla, for example, and Tesla have a responsible disclosure program. So they asking an ethical hacker to start finding a vulnerability or weak point in their application or their website and so on. And if you find something interesting, find a weak point, for example, you can send this vulnerability with the step of reproduce, for example, that how you exploited this vulnerability and how this vulnerability really impact Tesla company, for example, and they can give you a reward here, okay, monetary reward, a swag, and so on. And in order to start find a vulnerability or find a weak point, you need to gather information about this target. And we have two ways to gather information. We have a passive techniques or passive information gathering, and we also have an active information gathering. And the difference between passive information gathering and active information gathering is passive information gathering, we collecting information without direct interaction with the target. So here in passive information gathering, we rely on social media, newspaper, for example, search engine like Google, DuckDuckGo, Yandex, Yahoo, Bing, and so on, from competitor website, for example, from using open source intelligent tool, using a competitor website, as I mentioned. So all this information really can help you to start understand, you know, how your target defend himself, for example. But as I mentioned, there is no direct interaction with the target. So you're collecting data from different resources here. But in active information gathering, and that's what we are going to cover today, in active information gathering, we really communicate directly with the target. For example, we can have an interview with the people in this company, for example, in order to understand how they operate their business, for example, what is the technology they use, I can use some phone calls. I can visit the location. I can doing some network scanning using an active tool like Nmap, HPing, and so on. I can do some directory brute force. Maybe I can find a hidden directory in their website and so on, or doing some social engineering techniques, so tricking people to reveal sensitive information about their company, for example. So reconnaissance, as I mentioned, it's important step. It's very, very, very important actually. So it give you all the information that you are going to use later in order to conduct a successful penetration testing or successful hacking attempt, and as we mentioned, ethical hacking attempt. So I want to share with you some demo today how to utilize different website to collect information. But as I mentioned, today we're not going to cover an active scanning only. We're going to use both active scanning and passive scanning. So I'm going to start with passive scanning first because it's very, very important to collect data passively and use this data later with an active scanning technique. So let me share my screen and show you some great websites that can help you to gather all this information. So let me share my screen. Just give me 1 second. So I'm sharing my entire screen here. And if you see my screen here, we are talking about reconnaissance, as I mentioned. And inside reconnaissance, we have multiple technique. We have an active scanning, and inside active scanning, we can scan IP blocks, for example, see which IP is up and running, which IP respond, for example. We can do some vulnerability scanning after we collect what is service running on each port here, doing some wordless scanning, doing some directory brute force to find the hidden content, maybe a backup directory, maybe a sensitive directory, and so on. Once we know there is a live target, we can doing some active scanning by gathering information from the victim host, and we can collect some hardware information, software, firmware, or even the configuration running on this device. Also, we can collect some identity information like credential, email address, employee names, and so on. And yes, all these data could be gathered using an passive techniques or an active techniques. So if I'm telling you that we are going to hacking Tesla, for example, for today. So the first thing you need to do is go to website. It's called hunter.io. And as I mentioned, this technique, specific technique here, it's a passive information gathering. I'm using another resource here to collect information on behalf of me. So if I'm typing Tesla, for example, and yeah, I can click on this one, recent search here. So Tesla.com, I can find there is 785 results. So we have tons of email address belonging to people working in Tesla. So if you are going to take this a step further, for example, doing some phishing campaign, now you have an email address that you already collected from hunter.io. That's really interesting. You have also phone numbers. You also have the job title, and really, yeah, that's great. And here's four searches. If you for four sources, that's we found this email already presented in one of these URL here. So once you found an email, yeah, you can use this email in phishing, or you can simply searching the dark web for any information leakage, for example. So if I'm telling you, hey, you need to attack Tesla.com now, so you need to collect subdomains. And collecting subdomains, you can use a Google dot, for example. So let me go to Google, and I can type site colon Tesla.com, and I can provide here an asterisk dot. So what I'm telling here, Google, please go and find all subdomain belonging to Tesla.com. So for example, if you using Google, for example, we have mail.google. So you can use this domain for accessing your email. We have maps.google. So you access here map service from Google, for example. So this subdomain serves specific service, for example. So we need to gather all the service that Tesla.com really provide in order to increase the area of attacking here. So we have shop.tesla, we have service.tesla, we have ir.tesla, and we have tons of www.tesla. So you can get rid of this website by typing minus www dot, or, or as you see here, and now we get rid of a bunch of these URL. So you can keep doing this filtering, or you can keep using this filter in order to purify the scanning result here to collect more subdomains. And you have another question. I need to attack your IP address. Okay, I need to move from the passive scanning to active scanning. So I need to check if one of Tesla IP address already vulnerable to any kind of vulnerability. So we can use Hurricane Electric Internet Service. So this is can provide you with an autonomous and simply autonomous, or ASN. It's an IP address purchased for a specific company. So we can type, Tesla and hit enter. And as you see, we have tons of autonomous system related to Tesla. And we know Tesla Motors that we are interested in. So I can pick any autonomous. So let's pick this one here. And I'm interested in prefix 4. And yeah, here you go. Here's all the IP address belonging to, Tesla.com. Specific here, we're looking for IPv4. So once you're collecting an IPv4 IP address, we can copy any range from here, moving to Showdown. And Showdown is an amazing website. It's scanning all the public IP address, and it can provide you this information, okay, with more tags, for example. So you can add tags for autonomous like ASN, column, and you can specify the autonomous you are interested in, or you can add also the city. You can also add organization, for example, Tesla. If you're interested in a specific organization, you can give it a longitude, latitude, for location, for example. You can add vulnerability tag, you can add service, fave icon, and so on. But really, I'm interested in network range, and I can specify this network range here in order to see what is the live host in this network range, for example. And I got two IP address already available. We have Tesla Motors, we have VPN, and we have another one in San Jose, which is a web application redirect us to, you know, the same IP address, for example, related to big IP. So that's how to passively collecting information. But actively, now you have tons of IP address that you already collected from Hurricane Electric here. So now you can, using nmap with -sn option, to scan this IP range and check which IP is up. Once you know the IP is up, for example, now we need to check what is the service, check what is the open port, if it's TCP port, if it's a UDP port. You can also using some SCTP scanning. Once you complete the scanning phase, you can now moving to the second or the third phase, doing some enumeration, knowing what is the service running on each port, see if the service already, got a well-known vulnerability, and you can go to exploit DP or vulners, for example, or even search GitHub to find an exploitation code to use in order to use vulnerability here and control a vector machine. So let me open my Kali Linux to show you how to conduct an active scanning using some active scanning tool. So yeah, we did the passive scanning right now, and now we are moving to an active scanning. So it's very, very interesting to show you why passive scanning is very, very important, because yeah, in passive scanning, the target, they don't know that we already launched it in a scan, for example. Okay, I'm gonna open my Kali Linux. Okay, I will open my terminal, and from my terminal, I can type nmap-sn for scanning network. I can provide nmap with an IP range here. So what nmap gonna do here? So nmap will scan the IP range here. So we have 255 IP address. So we're telling Nmap, please go and check if this IP is up or down, for example. And you can tweak with the option. So really we have a lot of option with Nmap, and really I recommend to go and read the Nmap manual. It's very, very great one. Also, there is tons of Nmap cheat sheet. But as you see here, we got a very weird answer. We have, all host is up. So it's kind of filtering techniques here using by their firewall and so on. So we need to tweak our scanning in order to evade the security control here. We can also using nmap, as I mentioned, with dash h, and with a scanning option or firewall evasion. So we have tons of options that we can utilize in order to evade a firewall using the F for fragmentation with the maximum transfer unit value. You can use some decoy IP address. You can change your interface. You can change your source port, like using your source port as a DNS, for example. You can also play with the TTL. I love this technique is really amazing. You can add some bad checksum. You can use some proxy. So try to play with all of these options here. Also, in order to detect what is the operating system running, we have the O option. We have also some scanning techniques like stealthy scan, full scan, ACK scan, window scan, and memory scan. Also, we have UDP scan, null scan, fin scan, XMA scan, or you can specify what flags you want to add into your packet in order to evade security controls here. Also, if you're interesting, yeah, there is a zombie or idle scan using an IP spoofing here, and try to also map try here to calculate the IP ID sequence number. SCTP scan, yeah, it's also very, very interesting techniques regarding scanning. So yeah, we don't have nmap alone. We have tons of tools. We have hping, hping 3. Yeah, a lot of people love hping 3. We have mass scan. We also have Necto. It can scan the web server, check if there is any misconfiguration, and all of this scan is an active scan. We have derp or derpster, which doing some directory brute force, so you can specify a domain or you can specify an IP address. But trust me, all these techniques are very, very noisy and loud. So people working in security operations centers, the SOC analysts, they can easily detect all these attack pattern or all these attack behavior. So you need to tweak a little bit your attack. You need to rely on some you need to become more patient, for example. So you can using some delay between packets and so on. So yeah, that's a good recommendation here. It always work. You can doing some decoding to the URL in order to bypass some web application firewall filter, or searching internet for the specific version of WAF in order to bypass it. As I mentioned here from Showdown, you can check what is the technologies they use. You can type organization, colon, Tesla, and yep, let me, yeah, we have 913 result. If we go to the top product, we have Nginx, we have Cisco system, we have Microtech, we have Big IP, and we have operating system. So that's operating system is most probably used by Tesla organization here. So when you're doing some directory brute force, you need to understand what is the operating system. For example, if you try to exploit vulnerability like local file inclusion, you need also to understand what is the operating system. The payload which going to execute on the victim machine, You must pick the right payload, and you can pick the right payload by determine what is the running operating system here. So all this technique could put together in order to collect information. As I mentioned, we have a plenty of other technique. You can go and apply for a job with this company, for example, in order to see what's their capability, for example, what is technology they use, and so on. So yeah, that's the demo for today. So please, if you have any question, if you want to share anything, you are most welcome. Okay, everyone, any question? I don't know if people still typing or not. You're welcome, Mr. Islam. You're welcome, Fatma. Okay, I hope everything was clear. Hope all of you enjoyed today part, and see you next session.